Why did a single glance backward turn a woman into a pillar of salt? What exactly did Lot's wife see in that moment that sealed her destiny for all eternity? Was it just disobedience, or was it something deeper, something more human, more intimate, more similar to what lives within us than we'd care to admit? This is not just an ancient story from the book of Genesis. It is a mirror held up to our souls, confronting us with an uncomfortable truth. Sometimes, the greatest danger is not what lies ahead, but what we refuse to release from our past. Today, you're going to discover what most people ignore about the story of Lot's wife, and perhaps by the end of this video, you will never look back the same way again. The wind howled violently across the plains that surrounded the doomed city of Sodom. Shadows still clung to its streets as if they knew this would be the last day they would ever see the light. In the middle of smoke, chaos and screams, one family fled desperately: Lot, his wife, and their daughters running for their lives. There was no time to pack memories, no room for farewells. There was only one clear command: run for your life. Do not look back. But one glance was enough. A single moment, a turn of the face, and the story changed forever. Lot's wife, whose name we are never told, became a pillar of salt, frozen, eternal, locked in the precise moment her heart was, torn between the judgment of God and her attachment to the life she was leaving behind. Thousands of years later, that scene still speaks to us. What did her look represent? What does that pillar of salt mean for our faith today? And why, centuries later, did Jesus himself tell us with such gravity, remember Lot's wife? Join me in this deep and spiritual journey into one of the most haunting and symbolic moments in the entire Bible. Sodom did not fall in a single day. Its ruin was the result of years, perhaps generations, of spiritual decay. What began as indifference toward God ended in a culture so corrupted that it no longer recognized good from evil. Scripture tells us that the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah was great, and their sin extremely grievous. In the book of Genesis, it is said that God himself came down to examine the depth of the wickedness that filled those streets, and here is the most shocking part. Lot and his family lived there. They who knew the true God had made that place their home. How can one live surrounded by darkness and not be affected by it? What happens when sin stops being shocking to us? Sodom was a city without the fear of God, where violence, injustice, moral chaos, and a lack of hospitality were the norm. It was a place where good was condemned and evil was celebrated as virtue. It was in the middle of that decadence that God sent two angels with an urgent message. Wake up. Escape. Judgment is coming. When the angels arrived at Lot's house, they urged him to flee with his wife and daughters. And yet, surprisingly, Lot hesitated. Scripture says he lingered, and the angels had to take him by the hand to lead him out of the city. Why this hesitation in the face of divine warning? Perhaps it was habit. Perhaps it was emotional attachment. Perhaps it was fear of the unknown. Whatever the reason, his reaction reflects a profound truth. Many of us have been in that same place. God calls us to leave behind what we know is destroying us, but we struggle to let go. Lot's wife did leave physically. Her feet stepped out of Sodom, but her heart had never left. It is possible to move on outwardly and yet remain bound inwardly. It is possible to obey but only halfway, and that kind of incomplete obedience can have eternal consequences. Then it happened. As fire rained from heaven and the city was consumed in flames, Lot's wife looked back. In Genesis, the moment is told with chilling simplicity. Then Lot's wife looked back behind him, and she became a pillar of salt. It was not a casual glance. It was a gaze filled with longing, nostalgia, and a deep emotional attachment to what God had already judged and condemned. It was silent rebellion, disobedience not with words, but with the heart. That glance speaks to every moment when we choose the past over our purpose, when we cling to sin rather than pursue the promise, when we settle for what's familiar instead of obeying God's call. And in that single moment, she became a living warning frozen forever between what was and what could have been. Centuries later, long after Sodom and Gomorrah were reduced to ashes and buried in silence, Jesus would utter a short but shocking phrase. He didn't tell the full story. He didn't even mention her name. He simply said, "Remember Lot's wife." That's all. No context, no explanation. Just a quiet, haunting reminder recorded in the Gospel of Luke chapter 17. Why would Jesus bring this moment back from the shadows of ancient history? Why reference such a brief, almost forgotten figure during one of his most important teachings about the end times and his return? Because in that one act, turning back Lot's wife exposed the condition of her heart. And Jesus knew that when he returns, there will be no room for hesitation. No time for regrets, no space for a divided heart. He was speaking of a generation, ours included, that would be caught between judgment and salvation, between what must be left behind and what God is calling us to inherit. He warned, whoever tries to keep their life will lose it, and whoever loses their life will preserve it. That's the deeper meaning. Lot's wife didn't just glance backwards, he looked with longing. She turned with her soul still anchored to a city God had already condemned. And that's why her story is more than ancient tragedy. It's a prophetic warning. Lot's wife is not just a character in a distant tale, she is a mirror for our modern hearts. She represents those who hear the voice of God but hesitate, those who walk the path of salvation but still crave the comforts of destruction, those who say yes to the call of heaven, but whose feet drag with the weight of worldly attachments. Even today, the wilderness near the Dead Sea holds salt formations that for centuries have been associated with Hirsulant monuments to the danger of disobedience. Whether literal or symbolic, her image continues to speak, not just of judgment, but of mercy ignored, of time wasted, of hearts that can't let go. She reminds us how easy it is to be more attached to the things of this world than to the promises of God. How quickly our desire for the temporary can eclipse our pursuit of the eternal. How the pull of material comfort can drown out the urgency of divine calling. And so, the message remains strikingly clear, even now. Do not look back. Do not return to what God already told you to release. Do not cling to what is marked for destruction. Do not pause in the middle of your calling. Do not stop between bondage and promise. At some point, all of us have been like Lot's wife. We've doubted when God called us forward. We've looked back with nostalgia. We've romanticized the past, even knowing it no longer builds us up. We've hesitated when obedience required surrender. We've longed for what once was, forgetting the fire from which God rescued us. But even in our hesitation, God keeps sending his messengers. Even in our weakness, he keeps reaching out, calling us urgently, relentlessly, lovingly. He still extends his hand to pull us from the fire before it's too late. If today you hear his voice, don't harden your heart. Don't stay suspended between judgment and redemption. Don't settle halfway between Sodom and salvation. Don't get stuck between your past and the future God has for you. Don't stop. Don't look back. Let us remember Lot's wife, because her story, though brief, contains an eternity of meaning, an eternity of warnings, an eternity of choices. Yes, we've all been there, standing at the crossroads of obedience and comfort, gripping what feels safe, though we know it is killing our spirit. And in those moments, the voice of God breaks through the noise, sounding Like an alarm in the middle of a collapsing world, he sends signs, people, opportunities, convictions, divine whispers, loud awakenings. And every one of them asks the same question. Will you obey, even if it means leaving everything behind? Let us not forget, the past may feel familiar, but it is often full of spiritual ruins. And the longer we look back, the harder it becomes to move forward. Today, if you hear his voice, don't delay, don't rationalize, don't soften the urgency, don't put off what God is asking you to leave behind. The path to life will always demand sacrifice, but what lies ahead is far greater than anything we were ever asked to walk away from. Let us remember Lot's wife not with fear but with clarity, with reverence, with the understanding that the line between salvation and destruction can be just one glance away. Let her be a voice that echoes in your soul. Don't turn back. If this message touched your heart, don't leave without making a decision. Don't ignore the voice of God that still speaks, even through stories like hers. Maybe you're standing right now in that sacred tension between what needs to be surrendered and what God longs to give you. Today could be the day you choose obedience over comfort, faith over fear, the future over the ruins. Today could be the day you decide, I will not look back. I will press on toward the promise. There is still hope. There is still time, as long as you can still hear his voice. Subscribe to this channel for more messages that awaken your soul and strengthen your faith. And share this video with someone who needs to be reminded that looking back can be more dangerous than it seems. Leave a comment below. What part of this story spoke to you the most? And remember, no matter what, don't stop. Don't turn back. Keep walking. The promise is ahead.